everybody, and welcome to a fabulous episode of Cosmic Chaps. Well, it's not chaps. We have a chap here, right, Nick?
Yes, I am definitely one of those. So that is correct.
But he's a Kiwi chappy, not a limey chappy. This is Nick Rado, who is in Auckland right now, correct?
Yes, Auckland, New Zealand, the home of, well, not the home of COVID, the opposite. We have no COVID here. So we are roaming free. It's like it was 3 years ago. But yeah, it's all good here. And yeah, so I'm a stand-up comedian here. So one of the very few comedians in the world who for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 months have been gigging to just normal people and crowds and everything. It's it's a utopia of comedy, some would say.
Lovely. So there's
Yeah.
no excuses if you're not funny.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm one of the only ones that are gig fit at the moment. But yeah, so happy to be on the show though. Thank you for having me, Paula.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. So let's get to the first question.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never eaten one?
The taste of a banana to someone who's never eaten one, I would say that it's not an apple. That's the first thing I would say. And so don't be expecting that. But I would say that the taste of a banana is quite disappointing. If it's quite disappointing for you. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you've never tasted a banana, you probably don't know how to open a banana. So therefore, you're probably going to eat the skin first, and that's going to be very disappointing. But once you get through that layer, you will then be in for a taste sensation, which is going to be amazing for you. But I would not suggest to that person who hasn't eaten banana before to eat it if you have got a cold, because apparently it's bad for you. There we go. That's a little bit
Bad
of
if you have a cold. Why?
yeah. I think it's something to do with it's quite about phlegm. It produces phlegm or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not very good in that regards. Or apparently, I think it's bad for arthritis as well, or for inflammation. Maybe. I'm going to be just making all this stuff up. And it
We'll
also
just say it's the way it is in New Zealand.
yeah, okay. In New Zealand, this is what we believe. We have a banana, a lot of banana facts. Yeah, so yeah, but it's yeah, I mean, it's such a great question. How would you describe it? And it's yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely disappointing at first, but once you peel through the banana, it is amazing. I have one every day, to be honest. And yeah, I'm yet to I'd say yet to have a bad one, but I've had a few bad ones.
Overly ripe and brown.
Oh, the worst is when you think this is the new tip. If you think that it's like, oh, just it's only got a green tinge on the skin, so that should be fine. And as soon as you're like cutting it up, or as soon as you've bitten into it, you know that it's a bad banana. Like you've gone, I can't eat this. That slightly firm, not quite ripe banana, probably the worst thing in the world. I mean, you know, there are a lot of things worse than a non-ripe banana, but you know, I would definitely put it right up there. But then equally, there's no better surprise when that banana skin is, you know, leopard spot brown on the surface, and you're thinking this is just going to be nothing but mush underneath, and then end up being the perfect banana. That's the greatest example of set the bar low, and then whatever happens after that is very high expectations.
That's where I know that you lived in England for a period of time.
Yes, exactly. If you can just lower that expectation, and then anything you know, anything under that skin that is not like a brown mush, then that's a bonus. But then even then, if it is a brown mush, you have one heck of a banana bread or banana cake.
That's
So,
true.
yeah. So what I would say to the person who has not eaten a banana before,
That's if they haven't fallen asleep now, because it's that blooming long.
yeah.
It's like Christmas already.
I feel like the banana has already gone from green to brown in the time that I've forget putting a banana next to an avocado. Just put me next to the banana and it'll go brown by the time it's finished. So
Avocado, Nick, and banana.
if you want your banana to ripen up on the quick basis. So that was to be the advice I give to that person. Bananas, definitely do it. Endless opportunities for you. You either have the worst experience of your life, a very good experience, or a heck of a banana cake. So
they are the 3 levels, Nick's 3 levels regarding bananas. Okay. Do you have a lot of banana flavored medicine in New Zealand?
They tend to be orange or strawberry in New Zealand, to be honest. Yeah, there's not too much banana. Is that a big thing in America, is it?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Okay. We didn't really have that much banana flavor. And they have out here root beer flavored stuff.
Right.
And that smells like germaline.
Right. Okay.
Would you like a root beer float, which is root beer with ice cream put in? And I smell it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm eating my medicine for foot cream as a child.
Yes. See, I don't even know what the equivalent of root is. That like ginger beer, root beer? I don't even know what root beer.
I don't even know what it tastes like because it smells like germaline.
Right.
Okay. So much. It's just fizzy. It's like they're sort of like not quite Dr. Pepper, or I don't even understand that either. Don't understand Dr. Pepper.
Is that the tagline for root beer? Not quite Dr. Pepper? Is that the selling point?
It is now.
Root beer, not quite Dr. Pepper.
Please.
Trademark that. Yeah, no, a lot of orange and strawberry based flavors here. I feel like that's what they think is going to get people to take the medicine down here. But no, I wouldn't say that we have any foot cream based flavors for us.
But strawberry is the color red, and red is the color of the subscribe button. And Nick is going to get us to subscribe. Now, a little caveat reminding you folks that if you have your own channels and you want us to help support you, put that in the comments and we will go and subscribe to you and write a little note in your comments. We want to help everybody who is building up their channels. We know what it's like. But Nick, who also has his own channel, is going to tell you the best way to do this.
Yes. So if you go to Nick Rado Comedian on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel, but you can also go to Paula's meditation situation as well, which is right down below. Yes. That's an easier way to do it. I feel like there's a common thread here of me basically just taking really long time to describe everything that you need to happen.
Yeah. And it's
so if you go down below, boy, oh boy. You know where that expectation of that bar for the banana that was below, then that is what you need for the subscribe button. If you click on it, and there's a bell icon as well. Get the bell icon. There's no bell icon. You don't have to worry about it. There is a bell icon. There is a bell icon.
There is.
Click on the bell.
Most important part is if randomly you seem to see one of our videos come up on the side, that's when you click on that because it's the click-through rate.
Okay, this is all new stuff that I am yet to to get involved with. Okay, well that's good. And always leave a comment and share.
If you care.
Is another one. Yeah, share if you care. And I think that's all the things that we needed to cover off with regards to subscription. Do you have a Patreon? No, it's
no, but we do have links to donate to the nonprofit. So it's a 501c3 nonprofit. And if you happen to be outside of the US, another great way to support it is you'll see this really blur image. Vedic Meditation Stories is an ebook. It's the only publication in the whole world where there are true stories from individuals who learned the practice and it changed their life. Nothing is edited, not because I'm not lazy, but because I wanted someone's real voice to come through. So if it was someone who's not particularly educated, but their life has changed in other areas, I want you to feel the transmission of their story, and you will cry reading the transformations. If you have Amazon Prime Unlimited Kindle, it's free. And just flick through as many pages as you can at the beginning, and the nonprofit will get a little donate and then pop a positive review. But that is their Vedic meditation stories. It's an ebook. You don't need a Kindle to watch it. And that will be another way to help support the channel. And that money goes to the nonprofit to help it going. But let's get back to Nick, because I'm sure the answer is going to be short. No, this one will be, because it's probably like a deep question, and you'll be like, oh, I don't know. So
yeah. Or just solve it straight away. Yep, this is the answer.
Oh yes, life, universe, and everything, right?
Yeah.
So don't tell me 42. When did you have your first existential life crisis as a child?
As a child, I think when I was 11 or 12, I was riding my bike, and I was going in my particular house. There was like a driveway that was like quite a steep driveway, and you could sort of like go up and down the driveway, and it was a good fun place. You could sort of go downhill quickly, but also you could go, it was a bit of a climb to sort of get up to the top of the driveway, and spent hours, going up and down. And for whatever reason, I still remember to this day, I was just thinking to myself, everything is psychological. And I don't know why 11 or a 12-year-old would think that, but I just was like going, everything is psychological. If you think that a bad thing's going to happen, then a bad thing will happen. If you think a good thing's going to happen, then a good thing is going to happen. And I remember doing that because I think it was like I was trying to get up this hill, but I was thinking, I'm not going to get up the hill. And then I didn't get up the hill. And then the next time I did it, I was thinking the same thing. And then I sort of changed my mindset, and I was just like, no, you can get up this hill. And I did get up the hill, but technically I was going to be more tired than I did when I gave up. And so that's where it sort of came about. And it was just like this sort of epiphany. And then I just sort of started adding that to a lot of things that I was doing in my childhood. So like sports, or like talking to people or adults or whatever it was. And it just sort of became this thing that has stuck with me forever. Like it was just like this epiphany. It was just like everything psychological. And then it was like back to riding my bike, and what other cares do you have when you're 11 and 12? But that was the first time where I was thinking sort of, like, what is life? What is it? What is more than just riding this bike? And it's still true to this day. And it's kind of something that I still struggle with in terms of the mindset of old habits, I guess. And I guess it's kind of going into the bike analogy of sometimes, like, especially if you ride a bike, or if there's like a motorbike in a mud or a rut or whatever, you can easily sort of stay in that rut, and it's very hard to get out of it, actually. And you get pulled into it quite easily. And I just think that that's the same thing with the mind and the mindset and that, and so on and so forth. So I feel like that was my first ever thinking about that. And then now, as I'm older, in the last three or 4 years, I've started to do a lot more work on that, and trying to give myself more tools to use to be able to not get back into that rut of thinking, cognitive brain therapy type stuff. Just switching, instead of seeing things as obstacles, or seeing things as there's no good or bad. That's the big thing as well that I've learned, is I used to always think it was like you have to be psychologically to change your way to stop things for when bad things happen, but also the same thing happens with good. So you can't get sort of carried away with yourself if that, or get too big ahead if something really big happens, or you have a great gig, or you get an XYZ subscribers, or someone buys your book or your album or whatever. Those are really great things, but also you have to sort of like kind of go, let's not get too carried away the other way. So you can go into this depths of despair, and then also you can go into kind of this like almost ego, almost like there's nothing I can't do wrong. I don't even need to learn anything anymore because I know everything. There's two opposites into everything, so that everything is psychological, goes both ways. And that will be my answer.
Yes,
I'm gonna lock that in.
that is the taking, we call it the small self. Right, the small self, the ego, and the higher self. So if we have that inspiration and it comes from a higher self source, if that inspiration turns into something that was from inspiration from the higher source, if it doesn't turn into something, again, it was inspiration from a higher source to serve that purpose. Right. So when we take the small self out of it, we're not actually doing anything. We're simply conduits for some action and expression. And especially in the world of entertainment and creativity, you then have more freedom to be creative, but also the experience of how arbitrary it can be for someone who seemingly is making all this money and rising up in a certain area. And yet we all know there's someone who's cleverer than they are that's not making the money, and someone who is less clever who's making more, right? So we go back to these values that we had installed culturally, that the small self is more important than connecting to the higher self. Right.
That's and I think that's important in terms of and I think this is where meditation comes in, because me and my wife talk a lot about flow state, in terms of you have to sort of get out of yourself, get out of your own way to channel that kind of stuff, so that you can just let things happen naturally. Because as soon as you start thinking about thinking, or thinking that you're good or thinking that you're bad, then that's exactly what's going to be happening. And you're just sort of, and then you're losing the connection, losing the phone line or the broadband to connect to that, and you start sort of buffering yourself, because you aren't allowing what that thing is, and no one really knows. And if we could all tap into it, and if it was an easy thing to tap into, we'd all be doing it, and we'd all be killing it. And but whatever
we are. I mean, you're showing an example of it 11 years old doing exactly that.
Yeah,
right? So
totally.
This is something that is within all of us. It's not necessarily brought about in the education system, which I had another long chat with another person in the UK actually about that whole aspect of, if we had more of that with connecting to our inner selves through childhood, there'd be less crash and burn just around the world, and we'd sort of be connecting to where we have purpose and we feel good and happy, because as a father, you want your kids to be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're trying to sort of teach them as well, because it's really, because kids almost instantly they instantly sort of have that. They don't really care. They've got this sort of like this childlike play and quality to them, but and they sort of strike and do anything whenever they want, which is great. Which isn't so great as a parent when you're trying to get somewhere or do something, or get them off to school or what have you. But it's but then at the same time, it's like, this is the big question, is like, well, why are we rushing? Why do we have to get to this next thing? And this is where I struggle in terms of finding a balance between, yes, being connected, yes, doing something that you want to achieve or do, or be connected with that higher source, or be a conduit to whatever it is that they're trying to get you to express at that time. But then at the same time, we do live in a society where we do have to pull our weight, and we do have to be respectful of other people and their time, and you know, like if we were to do a comedy show, for example, and we're channeling and being in flow state and being connected, that's great. But if the people were also doing that at home and didn't get to your show on time because they didn't get to that, you know, 8 p.m. showtime situation because everyone was doing their own thing and channeling it, it's an interesting thing. And it's yeah, and that's what I struggle with, is the balance of that, is where we do have to live in a society where we have to respect other people and things and pull our own weight, but at the same time we still do have to be creative and look after ourselves and have self-care too, in order for us to be of service in the outside world. And I feel like that's the big learning for me, is like when I've got all my ducks in a row in terms of what I need, like fitness, family, focus, and funny are the 4 F's for me. So if I get all those F's in a line, then I can really be of service out in the community and in my world. But if I don't have those, then I can sort of start going around being more in my own head, going, I still haven't done my fitness or my creative outlet, and I start getting grumpy with the person who's serving me at the cashier, or you know, someone cuts you off in driving, or that kind of thing, and it just sort of snowballs until, if you don't deal with it, then all of a sudden 1 year, 2 years down, that's a lot of snowball. That's a lot of build up for people to unwind and to get to the bottom as to, you know, why are you feeling like that, and how to get out of that rut. But if we can do that, if we can just sort of keep the maintenance up, you know, get to that point where it's just maintenance rather than a full fix, full do-over, then I feel like that's what you're trying to do right now, with what you're with the teachings that you're doing at the moment. I feel like, yes, you know, and people are different people are at different lengths and different parts of their journey, getting to where they need to be. But ideally, and maybe stop me if I'm wrong, but that's, I guess, the goal for you, is that everyone can just sort of do these little things on a daily or every second day basis as maintenance, rather than, I mean, that would be the goal, right? Surely.
Absolutely. So it's having a freedom within a boundaries of a social construct, because we are not enlightened enough as a society, consciousness wise, to live in the free flow. Right. So this idea of the free flow, if we whatever texts you wish to look at, and there's a plethora of them from all different beliefs, it's coming from a consciousness where everyone is enlightened. Right. So they'll feel like, oh, it's time to go and sit down on the couch for comedy. And then there'll be a bunch of comics that would just show up. Right. Because they will be moved to go do that. We don't live in a society where there's enough of that. Right. So we have our social construct, got to get the kids at school by 8:30, I'm guessing. You know, get their wellies, get their backpacks, so they get their lunch. You're never on time anyway. It's just an accepting that, right? Adding in the time because of the social construct, but still being free, that you're not because they forgot the one thing they needed signed for the school trip. So you've got to go back and get the form, right? Because they need the form. How do we live in that? And the reality is we need adaptation energy. We need to be able to adapt, right, to what happens. And so if we have a regular practice, and say, for example, meditation that we teach, gets the nervous system down, so we get that deep rest, and then we get the stress out, and then we're able to not only cognize more efficient ways to get things done, but it's no big deal. We'll go and get that. Or we'll then remember, hey, do you have your form? Oh no, Dad, I forgot it. Right, go get the form. Right. And so we have freedom within that construct. So part of your discipline of your 4 F's is, that's how you get freedom. If you keep within this discipline structure. So any practice of meditation, they found 20 minutes twice a day is what's going to give you all those benefits those celebrities talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can seem like forever, but how long do people spend on social media?
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the, and that's again, that's the, yeah, I need it for my job in terms of my comedy, telling people where to, you know, that's how people find out about me. That's how people buy albums. That's people, you know, go to my shows. But I hate it because it's such a time, it's just such a time waster, and I don't enjoy it, and I'm not naturally good at it. And so it takes energy for me to do
Oh,
it. And so,
absolutely.
you
And if
know,
you guys who are watching now watch one of our first episodes with Brooklyn Jones, who's a comedian, she will talk about how she gets banned from Facebook and Instagram. She
right.
doesn't like it at all, and she'll get
Yeah.
kicked off, and she has to do
Yeah.
it for work.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have a long chat about that. So you use it for your work. And then there's the expectation of, why have you not returned my DM within a minute?
Mm, mm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, you what is it? Being left on scene, I think, is that's the phrasing or what have you. I got told that you can turn that off. You can turn, if you've actually read something off, you can actually turn that off on your notification. So that might be a good little tip for people to dive into if you Google how do you do that, because there's, as soon as you see it, or if you click into it, there's a lot of pressure. You know that they know that you've seen it, and so it's kind of like, then that sort of hangs around you as well. But yeah, so I think social media is I still have yet to understand, or to kind of get my head around like the best way to do that. But yeah, we will see. We will see. We will see what that is the best thing for. But here's the thing I want to talk to you about, Paula, is so for me personally, I do stand-up comedy, and so I need people to come out and want to see comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So in this current climate that we are in, there's been especially in New Zealand, and I think around the world as well, there's been a real boost in people coming out to see comedy. And I think they don't know why they need to go see comedy. But I think under the surface or subconsciously, the things that have been going on in the last year and a year and a half have been very traumatic. They've been very big. They also need a lot of escapism for what we've been going through. And we also need to hear uh like other people have gone through the same things. I'm not alone, and let's laugh about it. And it's almost like cathartic in a healing way as well. There's different reasons why people go to comedy. But here's the thing, if they weren't in that such a bad shape, then I don't think I would have a job. And therefore then I would be in a bad shape. So, and what we're talking about before is that there's no good and there's no bad. Everyone needs to be in their space, or in what they're going through at that time, good or bad, or even though there is no good or bad. But it needs to happen. Like you being in over here is actually good, because then someone can be over here, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what is the question? The question uh, is it bad that people are not coping and going through through certain things? Tough
Uh,
question.
well, you just said there's no good and there's no bad.
Right.
So we'll keep it as that.
Yeah.
If we're talking about a journey, right, and doesn't matter whether we are talking about religious groups,
No.
indigenous peoples absolutely talk about having that path, right, going through the pain for awakening. In the Vedic worldview, it comes that we are here in our bodies to sort some stuff out. So we're here on our spiritual path, and maybe helping uplift the consciousness of the world. So this is why there are people you meet and you feel like you know them from before, or you're actually reconciling something. The idea of comedy goes back to the Greeks. If we want to talk about the amphitheater, if we want to talk about the philosophers, it's the only element now, as it's live, for someone to express their voice, right? And then the rebuttal from the audience, whether it's heckling or whether it's laughing or ticket sales, is a validation of that point of view or what's needed, reflecting the consciousness of the time, right? So it is kind of, for me anyway, there's that sacred, if that person has 15, 10, however minutes is, that's your sacred time to be able to be in an audience live, people witnessing that they're witnessing reflection and unity, right? So of course the comic's job is, if you've got an audience that, you know, they're all single and you're doing a bunch of married jokes, they're just not gonna get that, are they? They want to hear the bro jokes, you know, and you got to bring those out, or just basically joke about how bad marriage is and they'll feel good about themselves. Either way, you are reflecting back a state of consciousness that they're in. They see a live person, and I think it's coming back more because so much was streamed in your own household on your own computer, right? Like there are certain movies you need to see on the big screen,
not on your phone,
not on your phone. And then so there's a resurgence. It's a person there with a point of view. You get to feel alive with it. There's laughter, people around, because if you're at a movie and you laugh, and I know that because I laugh, right? But if you're in an actual comedy environment, that's vibration, right? That's sound, and we respond to vibration, right? We respond to that, and it feels good, and that's why comedy is so addictive for the people who do it. Right? Responding to that. If people will always be going through a hard time. If we are here to evolve, and we, you know, you have your kid first year, second year, there's going to be something that they learn and they go through, whether it's times tables, whether it's reading this bloody book that this book, reading comprehension, there is expansion, right? And there are trials and tribulations. And how do you help that child grow? We do this too, all the way through to our body dropping. So there will always be those in need. There will always be something considered bad. But you pointed out at 11 years old, is it bad? Because you aren't going to get to the top of the hill thinking you're not going to get to the top of the hill. Right? So you had that inner intuition that shifted your mindset. So we have mindset, state of mind is deeper, then we have your consciousness. When you shift that, then there's no longer the need to shift the state of mind or shift your mindset, because you look at the world differently, right? So people will come at me, why are you doing this? Blah, 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 because they're coming at me from a point of view of someone is always wanting something from them, right? Because that's their state of consciousness, that's their history, that's what's unfolded to them. That will only change not only by demonstrations of other people doing things that they witness, they don't want anything in return, but ultimately when they shift this, what we call poverty mindset, right? And that's got nothing to do with money, right? You can have a abundance mindset and not be extremely financially wealthy. It is a sense of lack, right? You know, you can have lack even if you have millions of dollars in the bank account. Someone's going to take my money. Oh, they're always after my money, you know, or someone can have it, be happy with it, and spend or not spend. It's how does that plague the mind, right? And so your experiences of going inward and reflecting that and keeping a regular basis of maintenance is to be able to experience the flow. I mean, we're always going to deal with grief. We're going to deal with sickness, right? Our bodies will die. We're going to deal with falling in love, right? All of these beautiful elements of having a body and being in the world, right? It's part of the rite of passage. How we cope with it is where our state of consciousness is. So your experience at 11 years old, it's all psychological, is where you connected to the source of who you really are anyway. Now I'm going to ask you something. You had said something that you had done something with sports with it as well.
Yeah, so I was very good at football, soccer, when I was younger, but I got to sort of the top echelons of it in my country. But whenever I would get to that top echelon, I would always, I had the ability, but the mental element was just never there. And it was always, it just was never there. And so I would always fall back onto, you're not good, you're not good enough, or you're lucky to be here, and a lot of that. So that's why it's hard as well, because a lot of the reason why I got to the top was because I felt like I wasn't good enough, so I worked harder. And so you didn't have that. I didn't have that. So I never had that. What do you call it? Natural sort of just talent there to begin with, but I worked harder to get to where I got to. But it was always that was almost like a self-sacrifice or self-destruction mode just at the end, just when you've almost got it, that 1%, 2% left to go. If you just hold in there for a little bit, or even if you just believed in yourself, or even if you just didn't even think about it, you would probably have got there or get there. But it keeps coming up in various different things as you get older. And that's what I'm learning at the moment now. So in the last 2 or 3 years, particularly, I've been working on like this last 1 or 2%. Like I've got, same with my comedy and other things that I do. Everything in my life, I've gotten to the top of where I need to be, but it's always like that last little 2%. So now that's what I'm working on at the moment, is that little 2%, and trying to find tools and things to help me along with that. And I know why that has been the case. And that's a big help. And so once you know why, you can then start going, oh, okay, well, that's why. So then how do we get these tools that aren't used every day, but it's great to have them in the toolbox in case, like I've got this one screwdriver that I use a lot, but the other day it wasn't the tool to use. I had to use this other thing that I haven't used in ages. In fact, I don't even think I've used it at all. But for this one job, I was like, that's exactly the right tool to use. But it was amazing to know that I had it. And so, and it was actually a great feeling to know that it was like, oh, not only have I got it, use it, fixed it straight away, and saved me 15, 20 minutes of using the wrong tool.
Mm-hmm. Well, everywhere you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
With a pattern that you've seen.
Yeah.
We all have elements that we're working on, but exploring other tools and other options are beneficial. And meditation is one of them. There are all kinds of meditations. We are going to wrap up the first part of our chat with Nick. We could absolutely do like a big special sequence on him. I could feel it. He loves to go deep and chat, and I would spend all day chatting back with him as well, as long as it wasn't when England's playing. Anyway, that's tomorrow, another day. And so I will say, we're going to say toodaloo. Thanks so much. And we're going to come back for a second part with some more light-hearted, fast-ish fire questions with Nick, if you know what I mean. It's not going to be fast. All right, toodaloo.
Thanks so much. See you soon.